Okay, so that's the inside of the shop downstairs, and then we are going to take a trip up to the offices here, and we come through these doors here to the First Methodist Episcopal Church, Chicago Temple, and it's quite a building, quite an area.
Going up.
This is marble. Sarcophagus.
Hello.
Hello, and this is Harlan Berk himself.
Yes.
Very nice to meet you, say. So that was us bumping into Harlan Berk there in the hallway. And we're going to get a chance to follow him back to his office and sit down and talk with him here coming up in this video. But I wanted to show this picture I took of Harlan J. Berk in one of his first buyer bid auction catalogs. I thought that was pretty sweet. And I also got a shot of the very first buy or bid sale catalog in 1977. So I took a shot of that. That was pretty cool. And yeah, now let's get over and talk with Harlan.
We are at Harlan J. Berk in Harlan office. Some gorgeous paintings here. Good. Harlan,
Yes,
very nice to meet you.
likewise.
So I came down to Chicago to your store here. I found ancient coins, and through your son Aaron, and I've been having a talk or two with him on a YouTube podcast type of thing. And but I would love to hear. I know you started all this off, and I would love to just hear it. How did that start off for you back when this kicked off? What got you into ancient coins? How did you get started into it?
Well, when Moses was still in third grade, and I was not in school yet, I was 7, my grandmother gave me an 1818 Swedish silver medal, about the size of a $50, and some Indian head cents. And, you know, we were extremely wealthy, so when my father gave me my 35-cent allowance for the week, one of them was a 1916 D dime, Denver Mint, and they made 264,000 of them. At the time, that was worth $12.50. And in those days, before 1964, all kinds of good coins could be gotten out of change. You could go to the bank, and if you didn't get a Carson City dollar for $1, you thought you had a bad day.
Okay.
So when I was 22, Carson Peary Scott, a department store, had a lease department, and they were silly enough to hire me as their coin expert.
Wow.
And I wasn't really terrible. There was a big stack of Confederate bonds and paper money, and I told the boss, who was the son-in-law of the guy who started it, that I'd like to buy it for $400. Well, I was making $70 a week out of college. And he said, I don't think we should. I said, look, if we don't sell it, I'll pay the $400. So then at the first coin show, I sold a Confederate bond for $425.
Nice.
And that was about it. My father was clerk of the circuit court. My uncle had Lou Gehrig's disease, so I went back to run the jewelry store for my father.
Okay.
And eventually it got big enough that I left and went on my own because my brother went into the business with my father.
Oh, I see. So, and that was kind of jewelry. So did you stay more on the coins yourself, or the notes and the coins, and that's the monetary side of things is where you more started then?
Well, you know, I know a lot about jewelry,
Okay.
but the only thing that interested me was colored stones.
Okay.
So I just left and did the coin business on my own, which was large cents, especially 1794, large cents head of 93, which is Sheldon 17 through 20, proof-like silver dollars, which I learned from a friend, and ancient coins.
Ancient coins. And now, for me, I just found ancient coins 5 years ago or so for me, and I'm just fascinated with them, and I'm wondering, I didn't know about them, didn't even know they existed. So I just continue to be fascinated. What got you into ancient coins?
Well, here we go again. I had a Sestertius of Domitian, 181 to 96 AD. I had it for years and didn't know what it was.
Okay.
That one of the experts that we had when I was at Carson's identified the coin. So after having it for 12 years, I found out what it was, and he introduced me to ancient Roman coins.
Okay.
So I started collecting those, and then on a trip to Minnesota to go fishing, I read a book on Greek coins, and that got me interested in Greek coins.
So
on it went.
I see. Was there probably not all that much information out? Like now, of course, you guys have great books, and but at that time, was it hard to find that Greek book? Was it full of pictures of coins or just information?
Well, it was just one book with about 30 coins shown.
Okay.
By Charles Saltman. In those days, Charlie Wolf and Fred Knobloch would send me a Polaroid picture of a coin. And I was a real pusher, and I would call them up and said, I'll take it, and they'd mail it to me. And that's the way it was. There were 2 auctions a year in Europe instead of 2 auctions a day. And there was no such thing as internet or computers. And so, we learned it on our own. In those days, we were children, and the Europeans were the experts. Now, with libraries being available, we know more than a lot of the Europeans on ancient coins, because we ended up having more money, and the catalogs got easier to get, and we learned more. And there are still some great experts in Europe.
Sure.
And some of the best people are still in Europe, but there's a tremendous amount of knowledgeable people in the U.S. that when I started did not exist.
Yeah, I can imagine. That was in
1964.
Okay. Yeah, that's so intriguing to me. So then, did the art of the coins in that book attract you? Like for me, it's the Greek coins that brought me in. The artisticness of the Greek coins. Roman coins, I don't get as much out of, just for the aesthetic look of them. But what did it for you? Was
you
it
got
the
a
history?
couple of questions in there.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, I liked the Greek coins because they were beautiful, and you could get them, and in those days they weren't terribly expensive. Roman coins were basically portraits, but the reverses were very interesting because it would show an event.
Okay.
Or we've got 2 right now that show the Colosseum.
Yeah.
And so they were more historic, although the artistic portraits of the Roman coins were fantastic.
Yeah.
But they were matched by the Hellenistic coins of the Greeks. And Hellenistic, even though people don't know it right away, were done by Philip and his son Alexander. Because Philip said it was Zeus, but when they found a tomb of Philip in I can't think where they found a tomb, there was 2 portraits in bone of Philip and Alexander.
Oh wow.
And so it was Philip on the horse, on the tetradrachm.
Yeah.
And for Alexander, Hercules always had a beard, but the Hercules on the tetradrachms of Alexander was a young man with no beard.
Yeah.
And he looked in his 20s.
Yeah.
So it was a portrait of Alexander.
Yeah.
So that started Hellenistic art.
Okay.
Hellenistic, which was the portrait of the emperor or the king, whereas previously Greek coins showed what sometimes in Naxos it showed a drunk, because and Dionysius, because they were advertising their wine.
Wine, yeah.
And there was also gods that were involved, and they had the city god on the coin sometimes, and so it varied. But they didn't put portraits, and the first time they named a king on a coin was Ephesus around 550, 600 BC. And
Wow.
the first portrait was in Lycia around 350 BC, a
Okay.
portrait of an individual. I mean,
Okay.
I'm just taking this from guesswork,
Sure.
but I'm pretty close.
Yeah.
And then after Philip and Alexander, they went to portraits. So when Alexander died, someone like Ptolemy took Egypt. And most of the coins showed Ptolemy for 300 years.
Wow.
Very occasionally, they would show a portrait, and Cleopatra put some of her portraits on her coins, but not usually. And her portraits continued under her with Mark Antony, but it was a Roman coin.
Yeah.
So the Greek era ended in 31 BC
Okay.
with the death of Antony and Cleopatra,
Oh, okay.
which was, what can we say, a little fence in between the Greek and Roman coins.
Sure, I see.
Although
Okay.
we had Roman Republican coins beginning in about 212 BC,
Okay.
and those would show a god or an ancestor, until we had Pompey and Caesar, who appeared on coins. But Caesar didn't put his portraits on coins hardly ever, but posthumously, a few years after his death, his followers put his portraits on coins.
Okay.
But then we went to
We went to the next episode where we will pick back up with Harlan and get a lot more great info on ancient coins and how he got started. Stay tuned.